Y'all know what's going on. It's time for another episode of Doing Time with Joe. I'm your host, Joe Baker, and welcome to the show, y'all. Now check this out. Lisa, she decides that she can't take that anymore. That something needs to be done. They need to either tell Drew what's going on so they can be together, or she's done. She's done either way. She can't be in the middle of this father and son relationship. She's starting to fall in love with James. It's obvious that James is in love with her, but she loves Drew. But not in the same way she used to. Not in the same way that she used to. Because he hasn't been there physically in that way for her. Now keep in mind, you can judge her if you want to, and you can judge James if you want to. But the significance of this situation is this. People do this sort of thing all the time. And when you have people that are lonely, or hurting, especially when you have somebody that has gone to prison, the lines get blurry. The lines get blurry. And that's another reason I wanted to do this particular set of shows, is because people don't understand how much the lines get blurred when somebody goes to prison and the significant other is left out there. People justify whatever they need to justify to get whatever it is that they want, whether it be money, companionship, or whatever. And Lisa, she wanted Drew. But more than wanting Drew, she needed the touch of a man. She needed it. And James was there. And over time, at the beginning, it was just about sex. Now it's about love. As she interprets it, and as he interprets it. Not how you might interpret it. Just keep that in mind. So what do you do about Drew? So they've decided to pay him a visit. They decided to pay him a visit together and tell him. So they're in the VG sitting down, and Drew's sitting there, and he knows that something's different because the way Lisa hugged him and kissed him was different. The way his father hugged him and squares him is different. It's something serious. So as he sits there, he's looking at both of them, and he says to them, "What's wrong?" They both look at each other, and they look at him, and they say, "Why would you say something's wrong?" And he said, "I can tell something is not right. Something is different about y'all today." And they all sit there in silence for a few seconds. And they look at each other. And Drew says, "Is there something that y'all need to be telling me?" Because see, now his prison instincts have kicked in. Yeah, he had the conversation with his cellie, and his cellie was serious but joking at the same time. But now, Drew's starting to believe that there's something to this. And how am I going to deal with it if it is true? That's what he's telling himself. What can you really do about it? It's the helplessness of being in prison. You're really handcuffed to whatever it is that is going to be happening. You can't change anything. You can't affect anything. Because if people that you love will cross those lines, because they're lonely, because they're in need of something, then what can you do? You have to come to the conclusion of accepting it or crashing out. Because if you don't accept it, you crash out. There's nothing that you can do. You could tell your father that you hate him. You could tell your girlfriend that you hate her. It benefits you nothing. a lot of people would say that you need to be grown about this. You need to be understanding about this. But see, when you have emotions involved and you're wrapped up in this and especially when, see, this is what makes it so hard, is because you're at this place in this race where you're in love and you're at this juncture where, you still feel all of what you feel, and now all of a sudden this new dynamic comes into play, and it doesn't take into account that you're still in that place where you're in love, where this dynamic, meaning Lisa and James, they're somewhere else. So when they drop the boom on him, now what does that leave him? How does he take those emotions that he feels for Lisa and for his dad James? How does he take that and process it and still love him? How do you do that? How do you get to that point to where the pain that you feel has to be used to create a diamond? How do you get to that point? How do you find good and righteous in that? In betrayal? How do you do that? How do you do that? Well, let me tell you. One, anybody that will tell you that it's easy is lying to you. Period. Two, you have to learn to accept things as they come. Now listen to me. Hear me out. Before you get to saying, Joe T, you tripping. Don't do that yet. You might still do it after I give you this explanation, but not right now. Something that I realized a while ago as a believer is that I accept things as they come. Because if I don't accept things as they come, I won't have a realistic understanding, a perception of what's going on. And I won't be able to deal with it in the most healthy way for me. See, I'm not going to lie to myself and fool myself and say, this is not what it is and this is not what it was. No. Because if I do that, then I can't deal with it in a healthy way for me. You don't want to deal with something that's traumatic for you based on a lie. Meaning, let's say that Drew tells himself that it's not that bad or I'm not hurt. Let's say he says those types of things to him. Then when he does that, he's suppressing what he really feels. But let's just say that he says, this hurts me. This makes me feel bad. Then he can approach and deal with it because he has to go through those emotions to get to the other side of it. Because once he gets to the other side of it, and trust me, people, y'all my family now. I'm talking to you now like I talk to my family now. When you get to the other side of what feels uncomfortable, when you get to the other side of what feels hurtful, deceitful, manipulative, when you get to the other side of all of those types of things, you become a better person when you deal with it honestly. Because it opens your eyes and your heart up to being able to see things clearer. And then you start to understand other people's pain. Then I guess you would say, why should why should Drew be open to seeing their pain versus his pain? That's a good one. It's a good question. And I'm assuming that's what you would ask me. Because that's what I would ask you. But here's my answer to that. When you can see other people's pain, listen to me, family. When you can see other people's pain, then you learn to understand. You learn to understand why people do what they do. Because when a person is living their life through that lens of pain and fear, they stumble and fall repeatedly, over and over and over. I'm telling you. And when you can see that, then you come to understand that what they did, listen to me now, this is it, right? This is one of those moments. You know how Oprah said this is one of those aha moments? This is one of those aha moments, what I'm getting ready to tell you. Because when you do that, then you understand it ain't have nothing to do with you. What they did might have involved you. Listen to the words that I'm using, y'all. And if you got to play this back, please play it back. What they did involved Drew, but it wasn't about Drew. Okay? So now Drew's sitting there. And he's hurting. And he's struggling on what to do. And he's trying to process this in the moment. But it's hard. Because right there in that moment, you're looking at your father. Because he was looking at James and he was like, man, why? Why? Why did you do this to me? And then the tears rolled down his face. And James is looking at his son crying. And then he looks at Drew. He looks at Lisa. And Lisa's crying. Now, all of them are sitting at the table crying. And the pain it's there. And now, what do you do with that? So Drew stands up. He pushes the chair away from the table. And he walks out to VG. He doesn't say bye. He doesn't say I love you. He walks out to VG. Broken. Broken. Broken, y'all. And while he's going through, you know, when you leave the VG, you got to get strip search and all this. So when he's in the back, he's getting ready to get strip search. So the officer said, are you okay? Because, you know, they pay attention to everything when it comes to us. Our body language, how we talk, how we act. You know, they're watching everything because they want to make sure that we're okay on the one hand. On the other hand, this is about security. Because if he's unhinged, he might go back here and do something to somebody else or to himself. And they don't want that. So they try to preempt that by watching and paying attention to everything. You know what I mean? So the officer says, are you okay? And he's choked up. And he tells the officer, no, I'm not. So this particular officer says, what's going on? And he just told him, he said, man, my daddy is having sex with my girlfriend. Now the officer is just shocked. He's blown away by this. He's like, excuse me, what did you just say? Did you say that your pops is having sex with your girlfriend? And Drew shakes his head. He's like, yeah. So the officer doesn't know how to respond to that. He wasn't expecting that. Dear John, you know, when I say Dear John, a breakup, yeah, maybe that, but not that what he just heard. No. So he tells him, look, the officer responds in the way that most people will respond. And he says, that ain't straight. And it's not. But you got to be careful about the energy that you add to a situation, y'all. You can add energy to a situation and make it worse. Or you can add energy to a situation that's going to comfort the individual that's calling out for you, that's reaching out to you. Whether you're an officer or whomever you are, if an individual is reaching out through a painful situation to you, be careful of the energy that you put in that mix. You know how people say, you know, throwing gas on the fire? Don't throw gas on the fire. But that officer responded in the only way that he knew to respond, in the way that he would have responded. He said, your father ain't straight, and she ain't straight either. So that added a lot of negative energy to what Drew was already feeling. And now he's enraged because he has confirmation, negative confirmation about this rage that he's feeling, this pain that he's feeling in his heart. His heart is broken, y'all. And now, not intending to, this officer has made it worse because he didn't understand. Because he didn't understand. Now he's broken. Now he's going back to the compound. Now he's angry. He's enraged, and he doesn't know what to do with all of that. So when he gets back to the room, he tells his cellie what's going on. And his cellie, he adds to it, and he makes it worse. And he makes it worse because he says that your father ain't shit. She ain't shit. And now Drew's enraged to the point to where he has to let it out. It has to come out. Do you remember why Drew's in prison, y'all? He's in prison for drinking, drunk driving, killing somebody, vehicular homicide. So his cellie tells him, look, hold on a second. I'll be right back. So his cellie goes to get some liquor and some weed because he thinks this is what's going to help him get past this. So he goes to get some and he's drinking and he's smoking and it's not working. It's not numbing him. It's not making him forget. It's not helping him to relieve this pain that he's feeling. It's not working, y'all. So he gets more and more and more. The days go by, the weeks go by. He's calling home, send me money, send me money. The guilt and shame that they feel, they keep sending it to him. It's a mess, y'all. It's a mess. It's a mess. Uh-oh, wait a minute. There's more. Let me tell you what happens in here a lot of times when people be making that liquor, right? They cook off, right? The cook off, that's like 100% alcohol. You got your wine, then you got your cook off. That's that white lightning, y'all. But see, to cook that off in here, you need a stinger. And a stinger, you know what I'm saying, that's usually like, it's this plug, it's a plug, but it's got this piece of metal attached to the end. And a lot of times that metal will rust. Yeah. You don't have, this is not Jack Daniel's distillery in here where you have the highest of high standards. They just want to get drunk in here. They just want to get drunk. So they don't care what they cook this liquor off with. They don't care what they even make this liquor with. So they gave him some liquor that had rusted. It had rust in it, poison. You know what I'm saying? So he drinks it. And immediately after he drinks it, he cramps up. And he's in pain. He is in pain like he's never felt before. So they get him to the clinic. It's alcohol poison. His system is shutting down, y'all. His kidneys are shutting down. Don't get it wrong now. When he came to prison a few years ago, he's in his mid-20s. He's still in his 20s, but he's in his late 20s now. And his kidneys are failing. His kidneys are failing. Can't stop it. He cannot stop it. Because he's been drinking and drinking and smoking because he can't let go of the pain. He can't move beyond the situation because he didn't want to acknowledge and confront it for what it was. The people that gave him the advice that he needed at the time gave him advice that only added to the pain. And it set him off on a course of self-destruction. Self-destruction. This is not to absolve his father or Lisa. But what they did wasn't about him, y'all. See, that's where we get it twisted a lot. It wasn't about him, it was about them. He was involved, but it wasn't about him. It wasn't about him. That's why you got to be careful on how you process your pain. Be careful. So now, he's in the clinic. His kidneys are failing. Kidneys are failing. Well, one of his kidneys is failing, put it that way. And he's got some liver damage. So they call his father and tell him, it's not looking good. We might have to take one of his kidneys. He might need a kidney. So his father says, can I donate mine? And they told him all of the things that he would have to go through, but essentially it would have to be approved by the warden and then the commissioner of the prison system and so on and so forth before something like that would be allowed to happen, because Drew was in custody. But he could fill out the paperwork and talk to the appropriate people and see what could be done about it. And when he did it, they denied it. So now his son has gone through the operation and he's lost a kidney. And James feels responsible. He knows why he did this. He knows why this destructive behavior was on him. He knows why he acted out like this. Now let me tell you about James and Lisa. They're still seeing each other. In fact, listen to me. They're engaged to be married. Yes. They're engaged to be married. Yeah. And Drew, he's got 9 months before he comes home. He's got 9 months before he comes home. And here we go. And I'm going to tell you about that in the next episode. This has been another episode of Doing Time with Joe. I'm your host, Joe Baker. And I say peace, y'all.